Welcome back, creepy people, to Dread Central. My name is Xero Gravity, and like we do every day, we're going to continue our celebration of the Black experience in horror with some underground info on the next installment of the Shook Black Horror Anthology series. Now, today, allow me to reintroduce Marcus H. Roberts of Second Sight Publishing, which is currently providing the public with new genre stories created by diverse minds of all kinds, and introducing some of the talent behind this new project. Today we have Dr. Colleen Douglas, Raeghan Buchanan, and Micheline Hess. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. So on today's menu, we're going to be talking about Shook Songs of Sirens in an effort to maintain the standards set by Volume 1, which we also talked about a couple months back. So if you haven't seen that interview, I would get your prerequisites in. Second Sight Publishing has once again selected a group of highly decorated creators to continue the excellence in horror storytelling that was started in Volume 1. So thank you all for meeting with me again. And let's hit this interview roundtable style. So first, let's start by introducing ourselves. Who are you and what is your involvement with this project? And if you're comfortable sharing your pronouns.
I suppose I should start because I'm the collection editor, so it begins with me, and if no one else objects. Okay, so my name is Colleen Douglas, and I am the collection editor on Shook, Songs of the Dark Sirens, which, as you've already stated, is the follow-up to Shook, a Black horror anthology, which was the brainchild of Second Sight Publishing and John Jennings Studios at the time. And it was about some guys who would come together and wanted to create Black Gothic horror and Southern horror with sort of the EC Comics idea behind it. And because they were all from different backgrounds, they wanted to sort of get together and tell something unique that was special from a Black perspective. And Shook Songs of the Dark Sirens is a continuation of that. But we are doing it from the Black women's perspective. So that's the difference. And yeah, we have some amazing people on board. And I myself am also a creator and a contributor to that particular volume. And my story is called Pegana, Rim of the Worlds.
Hi, my name is Micheline Hess. I took a shot and stepped away from the golden handcuffs of ad agency work to go full time into comics. Mostly, I'm doing comics for kids. My main title, most popular title, is Malice in Ovenland, but I also enjoy doing horror stories. My first legit horror story was Diary of a Mad Black Werewolf, which was a collection of entries I made for a story based around the words that were released for that Inktober a few years back. And I'm really happy to be doing an installment in the Shook Song of the Dark Sirens anthology. And happy to meet everybody.
I'm Raeghan Buchanan, and I'm writing and drawing a story in the anthology. My story is called Cut the Lights on the Age of Reason. I also do a comic book called The Secret History of Black Punk. I do zines, and I used to work at a graphic design place, Micheline, and have been doing art full time for a couple years. So
it's not easy.
It has been a journey, but I really like it. I was very scared, but I've been okay so far. So.
All right, and pulling up the rear is myself, Marcus Roberts, which I guess I don't need to introduce myself, but I will. I am the COO of Second Sight Publishing, and Shook, a Black horror anthology, was our attempt, or is our attempt, at creating a dream team of horror writers for the Black community. And while we were putting together just how the book came, the volume 1 came together, once we got the lineup in, we said to ourselves, well, wait a minute, there are no women here. I mean, yeah, we were calling upon our friends and like, okay, we are friends with women as well. So we have to dedicate a volume of this book for women because the women's perspective of horror oftentimes is different from what we men may experience. I was already familiar with Micheline from my time with the World of Black Heroes. So Diary of a Mad Black Werewolf had been on my radar for the longest. Malice in Neverland has been on my radar for the longest. I was introduced to Colleen, and for now, I guess the last year, we've become fast friends. And once I started reading her stories and saw her journey in the comic books, I knew I wanted to do something with her, particularly her expertise as an editor. I was introduced to Raeghan through John. He said, check her out, check her stuff out, and I think you'll like it. So I took his word and I checked her stuff out, and I was like, okay, yeah, she's got to be in here as well.
Excellent. I love to hear that. This is all just so exciting. I'm really looking forward to reading the second installment. So, Marcus, how fast did you hit the ground running for installment 2 after you finished the entire project of the first installment? And where did you, in Second Side Publishing, where did you start with planning? Was it with the writers? Was it with the concept first? What was the first step, and how quick did you get there after the initial Shook anthology?
Well, I sent out invitations, and I sent out, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 invitations to different Black female creators, not just in horror specifically, but in comic books. And, as soon as we put together volume 1, even before we did the Kickstarter, we started putting together a lineup for volume 2. Everything worked out with volume 1 so quickly as far as the book being signed with Dark Horse, which it actually releases in January of next year. But still, our intention was to make Shook not only a series, but also to bring to the forefront the Black creators that I knew of in the industry. As I said, I spent years with the World of Black Heroes, so I'm very familiar with a whole lot of creators. So my intentions were to bring all these creators together and to continue to do a dream team of sorts. I said this in our interview with the first one. When they put the dream team together, it's like they brought the best basketball players from the NBA and put them on one team and turned them loose on the world, and they dominated. So I figure I'm going to put a dream team of Black creators together, and we're going to dominate the horror genre. So that's what we were setting out to do.
That's what I love to hear. That's what I love to hear. It makes sense, though, for somebody like yourself and just being in the publishing business and industry. If you have access and connections to so many fabulous writers and creative minds and inspirational artists, why wouldn't you turn it into an anthology that could just go forever and you can grab everyone on board? And then next thing you know, we've taken over the world. Is the only thing to do after this.
Well, I often get myself in trouble for saying this, but as you said, I'm a publisher. So I put together the stuff that I want to publish. And it's like, who are you going to tell? My partner? You tell my partner, he's going to say, y'all better leave Marcus alone.
Yeah.
Having this platform, being in the position that I'm in, and being able to do it, it is an honor and a reward in itself.
Mm-hmm. I know that's right. So for the femmes of the table, when you were approached with this project, what was your first reaction about being part of this anthology? What were your first thoughts?
For me personally, I was elated because it was a chance to sort of showcase the importance of Black horror and that's within sort of the broader horror genre, because I think that in terms of ability, it is very diverse, and it sort of sheds light on a point in horror that is often either overlooked or underrepresented or just plain stereotyped, which is,
Mhm.
out there. And I wanted to tell stories that were different and would actually encourage dialogue and would encourage people to sort of, I don't know, cross the line and see what's on the other side. So that was why I was excited for it.
I was when I was approached, I was actually kind of psyched about it because I just love horror of pretty much all kinds, but specifically like between like the 70s and the 80s during the pandemic, I would spend quite a large amount of time sort of mining YouTube for veins of those kinds of movies, and I would just have them on. A lot of times, I wouldn't even be paying full attention, and people would call
Mhm.
me and they'd hear someone getting chopped in the background. They're like, "What are you watching?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just relaxing, just making some art." Um, anyway, so I love the idea of being able to tell, another horror story. I really like them. I like doing really gory stuff. There's something about I've never really been into like horror comedies and things like that, but I've just had this hankering to do a sort of like a Evil Dead, like that kind of
Love it.
goriness.
Love it.
And just
Yeah.
something, it was a chance to take an idea and put it someplace, put it down someplace nice, where it was going to be given, really great treatment and be part of something much bigger. So yeah, I was
Mhm.
really excited in that way.
I'm really excited. I think that when I was approached, it was like a real opportunity for me to be able to work with women who have more experience in comic books, in horror comics, and so I was really excited to be able to put a story down next to women who I see as accomplished. Uh, in punk rock and horror, there's like a real connection all the time. Like a lot of the bands from like the 70s and 80s have kind of like a schlocky horror feel. So it was pretty cool to be able to kind of like flex my, comic book muscles from kind of like musical. A lot of the stuff I do is musical, to be able to have an excuse to draw monsters. I grew up with my brothers reading comic books, so we had like EC comics and stuff like that in the house. So it was really a good excuse for me to go back and check out EC comic books again, and kind of like so excited to draw monsters. That's probably it. I just really
Yeah.
about cool stuff.
Very clear answer. I love that. That's wonderful. It's almost as if this project has been, a stepping stone for you,
Mhm.
being around accomplished writers that you probably will be in that exact same place very, very soon. But at the same time, also a walk down memory lane, and Micheline, having horror movies on in the background like that takes a very specific type of weirdo, and that specific type of weirdo usually are the harbingers and the leaders of the horror storytelling community. It takes a certain kind of person that has a very strange attraction to the other, and the darker corners, especially of comic book era. But I feel it's a very like sacred bubble, and the people who take the best care of the genre are the weirdos who live in those dark corners. So I guess I'm trying to say real recognize real. So, can you each give me a very quick synopsis of your respective stories? Don't give anything away because I know our viewers are going to go run to purchase, but just something that we can look forward to seeing in your writing.
Um, so the story I'm working on is called God's Blood We Deliver, and it's a take on the food delivery service that exists around New York City. Except this world takes place. This story takes place in a world where a sort of a virus that is spread that induces a kind of vampirism has spread all across the
Wow.
cities, and so uh, people who are very wealthy and well-to-do can actually get the treatment, afford the treatment necessary to kind of keep them safe. And then you have other people who can't afford it, and the fact that they've sort of been left to their own devices. So there's a delivery service. It's like a charity, I guess you could say. That it's sort of mysterious. No one knows who backs it. That helps disseminate the treatment all around to places where people can't get it. Of course, at the same time, they have to do it at night sometimes, and so the infected are roaming around. And the main character is a character that I've wanted to do something with for a really long time. She's an older woman. She's also a heavier lady, and I wanted to create a character like this because I don't really see them very often. I think there's a sort of horror in the kind of invisibility that comes with getting older too. So I really wanted to kind of use this type of character. And of course, she also uses an electric unicycle as her delivery device because I'm completely addicted to them. So I had to find a way to shoehorn it in there. But she uses it to very effectively, as the story goes on. And so we just kind of follow along with her to see if she can survive her first delivery at nighttime. She was usually doing it during the day.
Excellent. I'm sold.
Awesome.
My story is called "Cut the Lights on the Age of Reason," and it's kind of like in a dystopian world where artificial intelligence and technology has kind of created a situation where there's a lot of confusion, and there's like these AI hallucinations that are kind of roaming around, like terrifying people. But mine has like a kind of medical nature too. There's like an underground physician who is like kind of unwittingly creating human monsters by using the AI to treat patients. And then there's like a nurse who's trying to kind of save the day or whatever. And it all ends up very bad. But I was trying to, I think that's like kind of cool that we both have like a little bit of the medical side in our stories, because that, for me, there's like a real anxiety in real life being a Black woman in, getting treatment and things like that. And I kind of wanted to call to that. My mom's a nurse, my sister's a nurse, my grandma was a nurse. So I'm around like all these stories of all like the hubris of doctors and the selflessness of nurses and like the issues that I have. I go to my family before I go to the doctor, because
my mother was a nurse too. She used to tell me some crazy stories. So yes, and what's interesting is that a short while ago, I was getting a CT scan for my head because, of course, it was for my head. But the actual initial prognosis was done by AI and then undersigned by a doctor.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm terrified of doctors and technology. So,
I mean, that's a very valid source to build on, especially right now. Even the DoorDash kind of idea. That's something that has very deeply, just like AI also. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if, somehow AI is involved with DoorDash and Grubhub and all these other delivery apps and things. But, using something that exists so heavily in our reality, like, come on, I live in New York City. Like, I probably see when I step outside like 60 DoorDashers a day. It's something that I can't really avoid. And the medical industry and
and that robot cop that's hanging out in the Times Square train
station. My God. Do you know how many times that thing has been kicked onto the train tracks? It's been kicked onto the train tracks like at least 7 times now.
Wow.
New Yorkers are not having it. But hey, add a little bit of chopping mall, that old lady joint in there, and we could be working with something just like you guys have. And what about your the last story that we're working with today. Can you give us a brief synopsis?
Yeah, sure. Well, my story is I come from a Caribbean background, so for us, there's a lot of superstition and
Yeah.
in storytelling, and a lot of horror in those superstitions because a lot of times it's aimed at the invisible and um, your belief in what is real and what isn't in the invisible. So my story is about cryptids, which is
Excellent.
a very interesting subject to me, and I mean beyond Bigfoot, and because that is also a cryptid in so many ways. But the story in question is called Pegana, Rim of the Worlds, and the name Pegana was taken from Lord Dunsany, who is an Irish writer from the 18th century, and he wrote about the gods of Pegana, who were supposedly the creators of the oceans and the moon. But I've kind of turned that on its head and just decided to have a primal goddess who is the creator. And her name is Neith. And actually, she is an Egyptian deity that was considered the primal creator in real history. So it's a kind of a tie-in between that ancient cryptids, which are supposedly created by her, and the Black Constable of Charleston, because I found his story to be very interesting. And he claimed that he had a ring which had been forged on the banks of the Congo, and there is a cryptid that lives on the banks of the Congo. So we're doing a frame narrative here. So yeah, that's kind of what's happening.
Excellent. Well, let me follow up your answer very quickly. What moved you to create said story? Was it a message that you started with? Was it the setting that you started with your Caribbean background and wanted to do something, having been from spoken word, from folklore, or was it a character that you started with?
Well, it was actually being in Congo itself once in the 90s because I visited Congo Zaire, and part of being there was really interacting with a lot of people from different backgrounds and being told stories, which is always a common place to sort of figure out
Mm,
people's ideologies. And they wanted to sort of tell me what their version of horror stories were, and
mm,
we'd have an exchange. So coming from that was this particular cryptid that exists supposedly on the banks of the Congo,
mm.
which is called Mekele Mbembe. So it's a very interesting story, and that's why I wanted to like pull all of those threads together and put that very supernatural element on it, but bring it into modern day where nobody believes anything. So
Mhm,
it's
mhm.
fine. It's all fake news. So
Yeah.
so then it was good. It was good. You could just slide that in there. So that was the idea behind it, and to really bring the story in such a way that you would now look at all of those incidents and wonder.
Mm, excellent. Micheline, what about you?
Um, there are a couple of different things that were involved, I guess, in the creation of my concept. I think one of them is is seeing friends of mine who are dealing with long COVID after the pandemic has sort of finished, and the way that it impacts their daily life, and the sort of dread and frustration that comes from feeling like, in a lot of ways, the government and society has sort of moved on without them. They still have to apply all of these different restrictions to the way they live every day, and everybody else is just like, we want to get back, we want to party, and like I totally get it, being inside, trapped in your apartment for however long will do that. But I think it's a really interesting and sort of silent horror show that sort of plays out in ways involving what they have to do from day to day. Also, like I had mentioned before, I wanted to do something that showcased an older female character, just because I don't see that very much. And then I think the last thing was that I just wanted to have a nice story that I could showcase a lot of like flying goo and like blood and bits and things flying through the air and arms and whatnot. So yeah, and something also that I wanted to mention is that what I'm trying to do also is kind of massage a sort of Verhoeven sensibility into it, kind of like when you watch movies like RoboCop and
Yeah.
Troopers, the way there's this sort of dark humor sort of interspersed throughout the story. I'm kind of also using this as a platform to sort of experiment with that, telling a story in that way.
What is Verhoeven?
Excellent.
Does that mean dark humor?
He's a director. He directed RoboCop and he directed
okay.
movie
I love
Starship
RoboCop. I
Troopers.
don't know the director is.
Yeah. And what was that one with Mars and Arnold Schwarzenegger? Total Recall, I think he did.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah.
Always mix
That's
up
a top 10.
I have to say the bit where he's taking the thing out of his nose was
Oh my God, yeah.
that was intense.
Yeah, that was gross.
It's gooey. Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I saw all those movies when I was so young, and I like those are still my favorite. That like movies like that, and like Terminator 2 and stuff like that. Like
Terminator 2.
Yeah, and Alien, like all of those.
Oh yeah, those are brilliant.
Yes. I think Alien was very shocking because I think it was the first time we'd actually considered that the stars could be dangerous. Because I think up until then we were quite sort of naive in thinking, oh wow, and if you go to space and how amazing and all these other things. You didn't stop to think for a minute that there could be a hostile entity living out there that may not welcome you, So I think that was quite shocking to really discover when you see that film.
Raeghan, how did you start with this story? Was it the character, the setting? What made this story bloom for you?
Well, actually, I knew that the first Shook anthology was based in, or they had like Southern Gothic themes. And so I kind of started out reading because I'm an artist primarily. So this is really letting me like flex as a writer. And so I wanted to be reading a lot and like looking at a lot of movies and getting like inspiration for that. And So yeah, I wanted to kind of think about, because I'm from the Mid-Atlantic, so I wanted to kind of think about Southern Gothic and kind of try to take it into what it might be if it was like Gothic but like not Southern, which I didn't look up. I'm sure there is an answer, but I wanted to try to like think about it. So I was reading a lot of Toni Morrison, Erskine Caldwell, Connery O'Flanagan. I just said her name backwards. Flannery O'Connor. Faulkner, who I don't think I've ever finished a book by, but I tried. Anyway, so I was trying to think of like if Southern Gothic, and I know this is one definition, I know there's more definitions, is kind of like stories about like the decay of the facade of the Southern way of life during slavery or after slavery. I was trying to think of like what it would be like if it wasn't in the South. And so I was thinking like, well, what if the story was, it was supposed to be technology and like industrial revolution and this was the future, and it'll be better, but it's not, right? So we talk about like the medical stuff, like we have things available, but it's not to everybody, and not affordable. And what do they do when we get new technology? We don't get to sit back and let the technology work for us. They make us work harder. And then things decay. And so, I'm from a small place that has kind of, they call it an aging industrial town. There's not a lot of industry there. So there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of breakdown. So kind of where I would, if Southern Gothic has like a lot of like moors and trees and open spaces, then, maybe there's like not trees, but there's like graveyards of old technology that we don't use anymore. So again, kind of an excuse to draw cool stuff, but that's kind of where that's kind of where I started from, or whatever.
Cool. I mean, I'm deeper and deeper, and I'm sitting here twiddling my thumbs, waiting for my copy to land in my hands.
So am I. So am I.
I know you are.
No, I also want to add that,
yeah,
as you hear each of the ladies describe their story, the synopsis that I have received from each of the individual creators, I mean, these stories are so different, and yet there is somewhat of a common thread in that they are different. They aren't what you would expect. There was a comment that was made about the first volume by a fanboy that this was going to be a book full of massacres and police brutality and that, and the readers are going to be totally shocked because we are true horror story tellers. We don't have to always talk about oppression. We don't have to define our existence from the things that have been done to us in the past. We have a whole new set of horrors that we're living in the present day that we can talk about. And the stories, the synopsises that I'm receiving, they reflect this. They reflect the side of society that's overlooked and is told by people who are often underrepresented in the genre.
Yeah, I'm feeling it too.
I just wanted to say one other thing. Your fanboy, whoever he may be, if he understood the minds of women, he would truly fear us.
Well, he's a male, so we'll never understand the mind of a woman. Like, most of us, we just roll with it. Like, yes, ma'am. Okay. Just roll with it.
Can I real quick? So
yeah,
I think that is, how do I say this? I think it's like like big up to Marcus, because sometimes the issue is the only stories that are let through are certain kind of stories. So for people to be like I'm saying the word is not conveyor. What's the word? Somebody who facilitates and encourages people to tell stories that come from their mind and their heart and creativity, and is not, sometimes you feel like maybe somebody is trying to edge you into another kind of story or whatever. That's what the story that they want to tell, or that's what they think is shocking, or that's what they think people want to hear. So I think Marcus for letting people come up with, you're a facilitator. That's the word that
absolutely. And that kind of push, and unfortunately I see it all the time, but that kind of push like ruins stories. It really does. Like, and I know because you guys are all horror fans, so you understand, this experience that I have way too often. But you pick a random movie that has a Black lead on the cover and you say, oh, maybe this might be interesting, and then 3/4 of the way through you're just, oh, the answer is slavery.
Yeah.
Obviously the answer is slavery, because there's nothing else that brown people can offer other than their trauma used in a way to, drive a story. But I think the best kinds of horror, and this is what I love about just the genre in general, is that we're able to portray our society's fears and what makes us uncomfortable in like realities over here, and then where we live in our fantasy. And horror is fantasy, it's not real. Where we live is over here, and these themes that kind of keep us up at night in reality are much easier to digest over here when you put it in a crazy world where there's zombies outside and you just need to get your DoorDash order. Because it seems, oh well, reality doesn't seem so bad where I am right now. I mean, maybe my Grubhub order might be like $78, but at least there's not zombies outside and I'm trapped in my house, for example. But yeah, again, pushing those motives of let's just make this about trauma and not specific racial traumas or a trauma around your gender, just completely obliterates all of the options that we could have for diverse and smart and effective stories like the ones that you guys have successfully written and will be published very, very soon. So yeah, shout out to Second Sight Publishing, because it's disappointing how often our stories get squashed like this for a motive, and then it really becomes a story that at the end of the day is not really for us. It's for people outside of our community to make them feel better about themselves. But that's a whole different conversation that we're not talking about today. So let's ask, I need to ask this really fun question. I love asking this question to all of my independent creatives that I get the opportunity to speak to about an original project. But can you give your viewers some homework? So before all of the viewers from Dread Central read your stories, what would you suggest as a good prerequisite? A movie, another graphic novel that might have been inspired, a short film. What's something that somebody can watch or read right now that can kind of get them in the mood to read your story when it's finally in our hands?
For me, you could check out a copy of Diary of a Mad Black Werewolf. It's dark, it's gory. PDF is just $5. You can find it on my site, Mishmash Arts, MICHMASHARTS.com.
I mean, we kind of talked about some movies that we all were kind of inspired by. I know that when I was writing the book, I was at my parents' house, and they always have like those AMC like old black and white movies, which are not like horror or anything like that. But I was writing it during October, so there was a lot of like kind of old horror movies, and I don't know what any of their names are or whatever, but they were continuously, playing. I know that's probably not a great like recommendation. Probably check out the artist's other work from this anthology and the first Shook anthology. I think collectively people have there's a big body of work here from all of these creators. I just love, any kind of like old horror movie or old black and white horror movie, Nosferatu, all that like German expressionism stuff and things like that. That's kind of, my work is very heavy black and white. So very shadowy and things like that. So anything like that, I would say like carve out a time. The world is so hectic, get your spot, your tea, your little alcohol, like whatever, like your little spot where you read, and just like give yourself a couple hours to kind of get into the stories. That's what the advice I would give.
In my case, I would say consider Alien Interlopers, because that's really what it's about. And also think about your house, and that not every spider is a spider.
Oh, that's going to keep me up at night.
That's
Keep me up at night.
There's something to just move you. Yes.
Well, from Second Sight, we currently have out available through Amazon uh, one of our omnibuses entitled Evil Lives, which is a collection of some of the horror stories that were written by Bradley Golden and some of his friends, myself included. Also, through Amazon, you can grab Harvest of Horrors Volume 3, which Colleen actually has a story in that book as well. But any
Yes.
of those Harvest of Horrors anthologies, as I said, is 3 volumes out. If you pick up any of those, you'll get a feel of the type of anthology that we put together. Uh, our whole motto when it comes to anthologies is there's no such thing as a bad story, because every fan isn't the same. And each fan, I can't determine what someone likes. So I just put a bunch out there and you pick what it is that you want.
Hmm. It's just another beautiful thing about horror fans. I truly feel like horror is the widest in terms of surface area of all the genres, because there are so many subgenres in horror, subgenres that we've never even heard of. That's kind of impossible, and especially in anthology format, when these stories are coming from different people, different artists who, may have nothing in common, may have only a little bit in common. But yeah, I thoroughly believe that there's something for everybody, especially in horror anthology formats. But anyway, I'm really, really looking forward to this project. I'm always opening my wallet for independent horror, but independent horror coming from the minds of Black women is kind of right up my alley. And I know a lot of people that are watching right now are also very excited, especially coming off the heels of the first Shook installment. And y'all are officially funded now. I think for well over a month now on Kickstarter. So congratulations for that. So we as a community, we just can't wait for this project to touch down. So before we go, I'd like to just go through the table one more time and tell the viewers where they can keep up with your work.
For me, you can find all that I do on my website. It is zcomics.com, and that is www.z spelled ZEE comics COMEEKS.com. It's all one word, and you'll find a level of crazy.
You can find another level of crazy on my Instagram page. That's where I post most of my stuff. It's Mishmash Arts, MICHMASHARTS.
I think if you just like Google peppermint Raeghan, like the gun or whatever, it's kind of hard to spell my name, so it's it's easier if you just go Raeghan. I have an Instagram and I have a website, so.
And we are Second Sight Publishing. You can find us Facebook, LinkedIn, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram.
It's still
Our website is secondsightpublishing.com. Our books are available through Amazon, Walmart, any book retailer.
Excellent. And once again, everyone, thank you so much for meeting with me today. I hope you enjoyed this roundtable discussion, because I sure did. And that's all I have for today. I've been Xero Gravity. Thank you so much for watching.